Now let's move on to the Cincinnati mob attacks. One of the victims there has spoken out. Single mum Holly was bashed. She was knocked out cold by a group of thugs in Cincinnati. Well, she's broken a silence to thank those who have highlighted what happened to her.
You have just brought back faith and humanity. So God bless you all. Thank you. I appreciate everything that you're doing for me and my family.
And the mayor of Cincinnati has still not bothered to talk to Holly or the other victims.
Reach out to the victims. Have you talked to the victims?
I have not. I mean, look, again, this was a fight. It was a horrific fight. But as Councilmember and others have said, we have significant other public safety challenges.
Fight, Josh? He called it a fight. I've seen the footage. It was a mob attack. It was no fight.
Yeah, so this is a race mob. I mean, this is a racialist mob. This was a mob of predominantly, if not exclusively, black people, non-white people mobbing up to basically beat the crap out of white people. And, you know, Rita, as I said on my show, the Josh Hammer show, I mean, what did you think was going to happen? Like, what did the people out there chanting that white people are an oppressor class, that the white race is responsible for more tyranny and genocide and colonialism and imperialism and all these various other ivory tower stupid left-wing isms? You know, at what point did you think that someone was actually going to start throwing punches? God forbid, it actually could have been a lot worse. They could have taken out guns or something like that there. But this is a race mob. And does anyone think for a second, literally, does anyone think for 1 second that if the races were reversed, that a bunch of white people start beating the crap out of a bunch of black people, that this mayor in Cincinnati would say, oh, we have a lot of violence here in Cincinnati, Ohio? Bull crap. Utter complete bull crap. You know, he had a moral obligation to reach out probably from the first instance. But the second that this story started generating national, I guess to an extent, international headlines there, which happened pretty quickly due to the race-centric nature of it, the mayor has to be involved there. I mean, this is the reputation of his city really at stake. Cincinnati, Ohio is not a small city, actually. It's a decently large city. It's not a Chicago, New York City metropolis, but it's a decently large city there. But this is a veritable race mob, and no one should think for a single second, Rita, that if the races were reversed, that this schmuck would not be immediately involved within seconds.
Absolutely. And the police chief there seems as hopeless as the mayor. She suggested late last week that there was another side to this viral footage, and she admonished the media for publicising it. But you're right, if it wasn't for X, if it wasn't for social media, we may have never heard about this story in the mainstream media. It was really X that pushed this footage, and in the end, the vice president was asked about it. And when he weighed in, the mainstream media seemed to finally get interested in covering this story. Now, let's move along to revelations that the FBI never probed confidential talks between the Democrats, including the Clinton campaign, and high-ranking employees of liberal billionaire George Soros, leftist billionaire, and his Open Society Foundation. These Soros operatives, Josh, including Leonard Bernardo, held confidential conversations with the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign team in 2016 to push the false Russian collusion narrative to smear Donald Trump. The then DNC chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she was in these meetings, and I do remember when these emails were first unearthed back in 2020, the Democrats had a very convenient, very familiar excuse. They said it was the Russians.
The document reportedly came to the attention of U.S. intelligence officials from Dutch intelligence. It included discussion of an email exchange between former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Leonard Bernardo, an official with Open Society Foundations run by George Soros. According to the Times, Wasserman Schultz allegedly told Bernardo that then Attorney General Loretta Lynch would not charge Clinton with a crime for having the private email server. Wasserman Schultz and Bernardo have both denied even being in contact with each other, suggesting the document was a fake attempt by the Russians to throw a wrench into the U.S. intelligence community.
Josh, when are we going to see something approaching consequences for all this lying, all this plotting, and really undermining of democracy?
All right. So first of all, in that cut that we just heard, I'm really happy that whoever was that voiceover in that cut talked about the Hillary Clinton email scandal, because many of us actually have not forgotten about that. Hillary Clinton had 33,000 emails for high security State Department official duties on a private server. She did the whole bleach bit thing, tried to erase it overnight there. And when James Comey, in late June or early July of 2016, right at the heart of that presidential campaign cycle, when James Comey, as the FBI director, got out there and said that he is not going to recommend charges or bring charges against Hillary Clinton because no reasonable prosecutor would do it, while simultaneously, around right the same time, within weeks of each other, the FBI had formally launched Operation Crossfire Hurricane, this investigation into alleged Russiagate, which we now know beyond the shadow of a doubt had its origins in the Clinton campaign, the Steele dossier, Fusion GPS, this whole terrible story there. So when James Comey did those two things within a few weeks of each other, that was the original sin, I would say, of America's current two-tier system of justice, the way that it's played out. I really do trace it all back to the summer of 2016. So I would love to see James Comey, obviously John Brennan, be held accountable. I would love to be able to tell the audience that these guys are going to get perp walks and mug shots, similar to Donald Trump down in Fonnie Willis, Fulton County, Georgia. I mean, that seems like a long time ago, frankly, doesn't it? Unfortunately, Rita, I'm a little too sober at this point there. I do think that there is a real chance of a possible perjury charge against Brennan, maybe even Hillary Clinton, too. Hillary Clinton has had a recent congressional testimony within the 5-year statute of limitations that seems to go pretty strongly against these recent Tulsi Gabbard, John Ratcliffe revelations pertaining to Russiagate there. So I think some perjury charges are definitely within the realm of possibility there. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I would not get our hopes up to see Barack Obama do a mugshot perp walk type thing.
Well, former CIA Director John Brennan, he's been back on MSNBC, and here he, with a straight face, tells a nodding Democrat operative that he is completely apolitical.
It's particularly important for people who I think are nonpartisan or apolitical like me. I'm not a registered Democrat or Republican. I eschew politics, quite frankly.
Well, there you go, Josh. He's not a registered Democrat or Republican. Nothing to see here. What's your response to that?
Yes, I mean, speaking of people that I would love to see in handcuffs with a mugshot, right? I mean, looking at him right there, John Brennan. I mean, look, if there is one person who I think should be the lowest of all low-hanging fruits of the entire Russiagate hoax, other than arguably Hillary Clinton herself, I mean, you're looking at John Brennan right there. And we recently saw in these wonderful declassifications that we've seen from Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI Director of National Intelligence, as well as John Ratcliffe, the CIA Director, among these recent declassifications is a 2020 majority report from then Congressman Devin Nunes on the House Permanent Select Committee for Intelligence. And within these recently declassified documents from this 2020 House report, we see this amazing exchange, this incredible exchange leading up to the infamous January 6, 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment. In other words, this deep state intelligence memo that John Brennan personally orchestrated. That man we just saw there, he tasked 5 of his senior CIA analysts, his most trustworthy guys there, to rush this memo out the door before Donald Trump put his hand in the Bible, took the oath of office. And one person there, a senior veteran, maybe I think multiple veteran CIA officers, said to John Brennan, said, "Are you sure you want to do this there? This whole Steele dossier thing there, it doesn't look very reliable there." And John Brennan's response, Rita, was, "But doesn't it ring true?" And those words right there, doesn't it ring true? If you had to sum up why the American people are in a bipartisan, across the political spectrum, fit a populist fervor, this deep anti-establishment, burn-all-done sentiment, I would say, doesn't it ring true from freaking John Brennan really encapsulates all of that.
His complicity in so much of what has happened over the last 6 years is astonishing. Well, longer than that. And let's not forget his part in smearing the New York Post and presenting their bombshell story about Hunter Biden's laptop. He was amongst those who said this was Russian disinformation. He signed that letter, and the influence that would have had right before the 2020 election can't be understated. Now, let's hear from Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who confirms here that there are still deep state intel agents at the CEI who are doing what they can to undermine the president.
There are people within the intelligence community who believe that their will is more important than the will of the American people, and will weaponize intelligence by leaking it to their friends within the mainstream media with the intent of undermining President Trump's agenda.
Now, Josh, Donald Trump promised a reckoning. He had people associated with him jailed over some very dubious politically motivated charges. Are we going to see a reckoning? Are they going to get away with it?
So, I mean, there's a difference here, Rita, between me saying what I want to happen versus me putting on my legal hat as a lawyer and trying to kind of predict what will actually happen here. First of all, on Tulsi's comments right there about how there are still hostile, subversive, deep state actors, of course. I mean, least surprising comments ever. I mean, there is zero shred of doubt in my mind that these swamp monsters, proliferate, frankly, throughout all the various organs of the intelligence community, the CIA, the FBI, NSA. So I have no doubt about that really whatsoever there. As far as seeking justice, here is what I will say. I do think that there are serious chances of getting John Brennan, James Comey, and or Hillary Clinton on perjury charges. Perjury under federal law has a 5-year statute of limitations, and all three of them, based on what I've seen, you could very plausibly argue they perjured themselves before Congress within the past 5 years. I think especially John Brennan. That might be the easiest case for Pam Bondi and her Russiagate strike force that she's calling it. That might be the easiest case for them to go after there. But a lot of these other crimes, let's recall, go back to 2016, 2017. And most of the crimes that I hear people talking about have either a 5 or a 7-year statute of limitations. So that does raise, Rita, the interesting possibility that maybe you want to go kind of pull an Alvin Bragg in reverse and try to, shall I say, creatively begin the tolling of statute of limitations, a la how Alvin Bragg tried to do the very same thing to Donald Trump, actually how he successfully did the same thing to Donald Trump in that outrageous Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen, New York State fraudulent bookkeeping, hush money, the most Stalinist prosecution, frankly, of my entire adult lifetime. So I mean, that's a very interesting conversation. Should the right engage in some similar tactics there? Honestly, my inclination is actually, if it's remotely plausible, probably yes, because I have long been of the opinion that when it comes to this lawfare that the Democrats started with Merrick Garland and Jack Smith, I do think that short-term escalation is necessary to throw some punches back in the service of a mid to long-term truce. I don't know if that's going to happen there, so I'm just kind of tempering expectations. I think that perjury charges for Brennan, Comey, and or Hillary might be the best that we can probably reasonably hope for.
I think you're 100% right there. That lawfare that the Democrats started, if the Republicans don't hit back, it really doesn't provide any sort of an incentive for the Democrats not to do that again when they're in power. This is the only way you're going to be restoring some sanity and standards and not having these agencies completely politicised and weaponised to go after political opponents. Josh Hammer, thank you so much again for your time tonight.